Welcome to NewsNation. This is where right and left come to be reasonable. And may I say, happy Cinco de Mayo. Now, some of you may respond in kind. Oh, and happy Cinco de Mayo to you. Others may wonder why in America we would celebrate Mexican Independence Day, as Congress formally recognized the historical significance in 2005 of Cinco de Mayo. But why? Then we have who this show and NewsNation are actually built for, the truly independent critical thinkers who curiously say with a wry smile, oh, this day is an example of the game. Cinco de Mayo is in fact an example of how we play with the difference between perception and reality. Basically, the rule of perception versus reality is this: you have the way things appear, the way you are told they are, and then the way they actually are. Now, sometimes these three overlap. Sometimes they bear no relation to one another. For instance, Cinco de Mayo, May 5th, is a holiday that's an excuse for many of us here to wear big hats, drink tequila and beer, and eat chips and guac, right? Queso. But how'd we get here? By celebrating Mexico's Independence Day, many believe, except that that's not what Cinco de Mayo is celebrating. Mexican Independence Day is September 16th, and even that doesn't make much sense to me because Mexico celebrates on September 16th its independence from Spain, which occurred in 1810, but they weren't really truly independent. Why? Because the French wound up taking control some 50 years later or so, albeit briefly. The point is, May 5th, okay, Cinco de Mayo commemorates the Battle of Puebla. Mexico actually won. Zaragoza was leading them, and it was a big surprise against the French, but it wasn't the decisive battle. The Mexicans wound up losing to the French and being ruled by Maximilian. Confusing, right? Why celebrate it? In fact, a recent poll found that 40% of us, only 40% of us know that Cinco de Mayo is not about Mexico's independence. So even with those who aren't ignorant, why do they go along with it? Why do we care in America? Congress said it's to honor Mexican heritage with a nowhere battle that didn't lead them to their own victory. It takes us to the real answer, the third version, the gravamen, the crux. We celebrate this as an excuse for another Hallmark holiday that allows people to sell stuff like chips and guac and happy hours. So you see, Cinco de Mayo appears to be one thing, is explained as another, and yet it is really about something else entirely. This happens to us all the time, especially in a world of competing narratives. Trump's deportation efforts. No question it matters to many in this America, but America has also been convinced that this is something you really have to worry about. The president says he wants to get rid of all illegal entrants, 10 million, 12 million, 15 million, 20 million, whatever number you want to believe. Under the guise of what? Bad hombres, criminality, national security. The left says, no, Trump is using deportation as a wedge, as a phobia, and as a cover. Cover for what? To take power from the other branches, subvert the Constitution, become a dictator. Now, in their defense, President Trump does make it easy to project dark intentions onto him by saying things like this. Did Trump allow his critics to say, he just said he doesn't know if he wants to defend the Constitution? Yes. Yes, he did give them the ability. The same way he did with the MS-13 stuff by insisting it's written on the knuckles when it isn't. But what really matters? Okay? I'm not giving him a pass, but he didn't mean that he doesn't think he's supposed to defend the Constitution. And I can't believe that the NBC reporter had to rely on Secretary Rubio for her understanding that everyone here on American soil gets due process. No, that's in the Constitution, okay? Everyone in an American jurisdiction, every person, not citizen, every person is entitled to due process. How much? In what way? That is the debatable concern that we should be having. Not Rubio says it. It's in the Constitution. Read it. Now, Trump is saying, I don't know that I agree with what you're saying the Constitution demands. He's not saying he doesn't want to defend the Constitution. The truth is enough. You don't have to make up a narrative to distort something that not only isn't what he's saying it is, but is both are not what this thing is in reality. So what is it? What's the immigration thing for Trump, the mass deportation thing? It's about Trump showing strength and delivering on a campaign promise. It's not part of a grand plan or a vision. Trump wasn't saying what NBC wants to pretend he was saying and all his critics about the Constitution and defending it. He was saying he doesn't agree with that. Now, look, I think he's wrong, okay, on the law and on what would be good policy, but who cares what I think? It's a separate issue. The reality is, this is just about playing to perception of doing a lot about an exaggerated problem. The left wants to say he wants to destroy the Constitution. He wants to say, no, it's about bringing back law and order and protecting American workers. Listen, do illegal entrants commit crimes? Yes. Do legal entrants, immigrants, commit crimes? Yes. Both commit crimes at rates lower than citizens. You don't have to believe me. Believe the Cato Institute, a conservative think tank. They did the study. Go read it, okay? The overwhelming majority of people who enter illegally, okay, wrongfully, are helping communities. And they do not qualify for federal benefits. I know what you hear on Twitter. It's bull. And not to mention, we have millions of open jobs and are near full employment. So clearly we need people. The idea that getting rid of everybody makes sense logistically, legally, politically, or practically is really a dubious notion. Illegal immigrants represent 14% of our construction workers. We already have a shortfall. 13% of agricultural workers. We have a huge shortfall without them there. 7% of hospitality workers. 7 million openings in America with them here. Do you understand? This is about the politics of fear, xenophobia, a misplaced sense of making advantage for the American worker. Same with tariffs. It looks like Trump is just taking on everyone because he thinks that doing a lot is doing well. Captain Chaos. He says, no, it's about bringing back manufacturing. But what is it really? It's really an example of doing a lot without a plan. Okay? That's what it is. It's overreach of a single tactic. Tariffs can work. They got to be targeted, they got to be specific, and they got to be a consequence. He used them right off the bat. Why? That's Trump. And there was no one around him to rein him in. And I don't care what you say about Scott Bessent. He clearly isn't running the ship. Okay? I'm telling you, I know as a matter of fact that what we are living through is not part of a White House strategy. This is not how they plan for it to go. And I still think it gets worse for us as consumers. Okay? Oh, but wait a minute. Look at all the billions and billions that companies are saying they're going to invest here. Clearly they worked. Are they doing that because of the tariffs or despite them? Ask the companies. Okay? They're looking for incentives and opportunities, and the administration is offering them. You didn't hear that part, did you? And by the way, when are they going to invest? How long is it going to take? And what is it going to mean for who gets to work there? These are all unknowns. Okay? Now, Trump's latest tariff move came last night. He ordered his administration to start the process of tariffing movies made in foreign lands by 100%, claiming it is a national security risk. How is making movies somewhere else dangerous to you and me? Hollywood is often pushing out propaganda, right? That's kind of what movies are and stories. And that's certainly what Trump thinks. But his intent to revitalize Hollywood is fine. But why would you call it a national security issue? 18,000 Hollywood jobs have disappeared since the pandemic. Why? Because it was made too hard here, and it was made easier elsewhere. So what is the purpose of the tariff? Is it to bring back Hollywood jobs. It's to protect national security. I don't know how it could be protecting national security. But if you want to bring back the jobs, why don't you make it better for them here than it is somewhere else? That's why they left. Nobody is anxious to pick up and go make movies in Toronto or in some other country if they could make them here. Make it easier for them to do it here. My son's home from college. He's calling me. He doesn't care that I'm on TV. So, look, I don't know what matters more to Trump, but I'm telling you, you got to see this con that is put on you, not just by Trump. There is what you're told it is, what it kind of appears to be in that context, and then what it really is, okay? And you have to get wise to the game. Now, this has competing narratives. The Democrats seem to be all in on bashing Trump. That's all they know. They can't get away from it because he's too tempting a target. But it's not building a base for them that can lead to the majority. They lost the popular vote against Trump. No one saw that coming, and it probably should have never happened. So what is their response? Hakeem Jeffries and Cory Booker sitting on the front steps talking for half a day? Cory Booker talking for over a day about things that I can't even remember one thing he said? AOC and Bernie Sanders trying to do MAGA 2.0? This is how the Democrats respond in a way that gets them to a better place? Let's ask somebody who I was raised to believe is at the top of the food chain about being a smart Democrat and what works to build consensus in this country. Former DNC chair, former governor of Virginia, Mr. Terry McAuliffe. It is good to see you, my old friend.
Chris, it is great to be with you. And I'll answer your question on Cinco de Mayo. It's a great time for us to be able to drink tequila, plain and simple, buddy.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm with you. You say tequila, I get water in the back of my throat. Immediately. It's a salivary Pavlovian response. So, Terry, I was raised watching you as a mechanic, as a tactician, and frankly, as a philosopher about what the Democrats are and how that should be made manifest in policy. Help me understand how your party is responding in a way that meets any of your expectations.
Listen, 2024, I'll be the first to tell you, was a tough time, but 70% of the country thought we were heading the wrong direction. That's very difficult to win an election like that. So what we Democrats have to do is we have to go out. We have to have a positive message of where we're going to take people. As you know, I'm a very pro-jobs Democrat, Chris. As governor of Virginia, I was a New Yorker who got elected governor of Virginia, and I focused on rebuilding our economy. I inherited a huge deficit, left the biggest surplus in the history of our state, traveled the globe. I was the most traveled governor in U.S. history, 35 trade missions in 4 years, recruited 2,100 companies to come to Virginia, 210,000 new jobs. What did that mean? Record investment in education, record investment in healthcare. That's what folks want to hear from us. Put all that other stuff aside. What are you doing to make my lives better? So, record investment in education, everybody gets a quality education, making sure everybody has quality healthcare, rebuilding the infrastructure, building that new Virginia economy. And I think Democrats, this is what we need to focus on. Trump's given us a lot of material. He is the most unpopular president in the first 100 days in modern history, as you know. You look at the tariff, I'm thinking about all the jobs I created. I went around the world bringing jobs to Virginia. I wasn't closing doors and doing what he's doing on the tariffs. We need to hit him hard on the tariffs. I worry, as a former governor of Virginia, all the jobs that have been lost in Virginia. I mean, we've got Elon Musk and some kid by the name of Big Balls going around cutting all of these jobs. Virginia has 320,000 people who work for the government or have federal contracts. And they have uncertainty every single day, Chris. Am I going to have a job? Is my spouse going to have a job? Is my kid going to have a job? That's what Trump has wrought. And that's what we need to focus on. Let Trump do what he's doing. But we Democrats, let us get a positive message to build the strongest economy. Let's focus on jobs. I am a very pro-jobs Democrat. When I was governor, businesses loved me. You know why? I worked with them. You come to my state, let's create jobs. I get more tax revenue, and I get to invest in the things that matter to the average families in Virginia. I built more roads. I did the things that people care about.
But it seems like Trump has stolen that from you guys, or has taken it over, because nobody owns it. It's whoever delivers on it. He talks like an old school Democrat. Hey, the rich have gotten too rich on the backs of everybody else. It's time to readjust. We got to figure out how. You can criticize what he's doing about it, but he's got his finger on the right concern in terms of the majority of Americans. And I don't hear the Democrats echoing that. I see Bernie and AOC basically arguing to have the government give you everything and make sure you're really angry, because that seems to be, you know, what worked for Trump. So they're trying to get people angry. And then you got other people talking about how he's a despot. I don't know how it gets you guys to a better place.
Yeah, anger, I will argue anger doesn't work. I think I'm a very optimistic. I'm not a half full glass guy. I'm overflowing. And people want optimism. And listen, Trump had some messaging out there. The issues of inflation, we could have and should have done a much better job dealing with the issues of inflation in the 24 campaign. He dealt on the issues of immigration, which we should have dealt a stronger hand in dealing with that. Okay, well, then now let's go forward. 38% of Americans today think he's doing a bad job in the economy. 3 out of 4 people worried. His tariff policy cost $5 trillion in economic losses. People's 401ks, Chris, were decimated. So there's anxiety. There's uncertainty. That let Trump do what he's going to do. We have to fill that void. Get out there with a positive message, lifting people up. Now, let's be clear. We won that Wisconsin Supreme Court seat. We won the state Senate seat in Pennsylvania, which we hadn't won in 100 years. It was a Trump plus 15. We cut those 2 congressional races in Florida, the margins, by half. So already you've seen it. And I will promise you, Chris, and invite me back on your show, we win both governors this year. We win the New York mayor's race. And then we come back next year and we win the House of Representatives. I think the Senate's a tougher, but I feel good about the House, only because there's anxiety, there's concern, there's uncertainty with Trump, what's going on with the DOGE cuts. They don't like the USAID being unilaterally cut all across the board. People love our country. They love the soft power that we do around the world. They're aghast at what he's done in Ukraine, calling Zelensky the aggressor and a dictator. Come on.
I hear you.
I've been to Ukraine.
I hear you about the
I've been to the front
stuff.
lanes.
I believe, listen, I know you have, but what I'm saying is you wouldn't be doing any of the things that your party's doing right now. See, that's what I don't understand. Pelosi seems to be on the fade, and I get it. I mean, she's in her 80s. She's had an amazing run. She's an historic leader. You can like her, you cannot like her. I don't care. She's effective as hell. But
100%.
They're not doing what you're saying. They're not in the business of better. They're just in the, because, see, look, here's the concern for Democrats, I think. You tell me. Trump is on the right issues. Now, some of them are these BS culture war issues, but we can't get far away enough from the culture wars as far as I'm concerned. He's talking about what is fair distribution of wealth, what is, and you know, you can go full commie on this if you're not careful, but your opportunity is not to say he's wrong. He's right. He just doesn't have the best ways to get us there if you have better ideas. Do Democrats have better ideas than Trump has? Tariffs, the way he did it, not great. Made a mistake as far as I'm concerned. But what is better?
Yeah, and you referenced President Clinton early on before this started. You think of the great campaign he ran for president in 1992. I remind all your young viewers, they will find this hard to believe, but under President Clinton and Vice President Gore, we had 4 balanced budgets. We had 2 years of budget surpluses, 300,000 people. Jobs were eliminated in the federal government through the reinventing government. He did it smartly, Chris. They went in, they did attrition, they gave people $25,000 buyouts. That's what people are yearning for, bringing folks together. And listen, we have Democratic governors. You know, I'm always big on governors, Chris. I always think a governor should be president. At the end of the day, they make executive decisions every single day. We don't get to have deficits. If we have a deficit, we got to cut or we got to raise taxes. I like to cut. I don't like to raise taxes. So, you know, we have great governors across this country today, Chris, that are leading. So I would just disagree with your premise that the Democrats aren't getting the message out. They are in our states, and they're getting that good Democratic message out. And let's be clear, Chris, it is hard to break through. Trump has a huge megaphone, as you know, out there. He controls a vast array of social media. And the one thing I and others are really working hard on the party, I think where we really failed in 2024 is on the whole social media platform. We were not talking to people. We were not talking to young people. And Trump and his campaign very effectively, I think, were in all different modes of communication, talking to people every single day, getting their message out. And we failed at that. And I think it's really incumbent upon our party to redo it, how we reach out, how our messaging. As you know, as chairman of the party, I built the party's first voter file, 300 million names. That was back 24 years ago. Well, we've got to do what I did way back 24 years ago, and we have got to get the infrastructure, the technological infrastructure of our party, because we can have the greatest message, but if you don't have an ability to communicate to the people who are paying attention on the modes of communication that they're actually looking at. I have 5 children. They're on their phones every single day. We got to be talking to them and messaging them with things that matter to them. Not this other stuff which they don't care about. But do they care about a good quality job? You bet they do. Does every parent want their kid to have a good education? Yeah. Do we want our parents to make sure they got great health care? You bet they do. They want to get on a road and not stuck in traffic all day? You bet. That's why I did a record amount on infrastructure. It's basic. This is not rocket science. Be positive, be uplifting, be happy, and lead people. That's the Democratic message that people are yearning for today. And that's a message for all Americans. And the insanity that you've seen in the Trump administration with all of these cuts, and I really, I travel. I wish I could be on your show. I've been all over the world, Chris, the last 6 months. You ought to be overseas talking to people. They're asking me, what is going on with your country? The soft power we had in Africa that we've pulled out. Now China has moved in where we have pulled out. What's going on at the Department of Defense, the idea that we're using classified information, we're talking about launching F-15s on a non-secure site, non-defense secure site. I have a son who was a captain of the United States Marine Corps. If he had done what was done by the Secretary of Defense on Signal, he would have been court-martialed in 4 days.
No, I hear you. I hear you, Terry. You look, you're making good points. I'm letting you make them because people need to hear them because, you know, I gotta balance my coverage, and it's hard to find Democrats who are offering people something I believe they can attach to.
Yeah.
So I needed you, Gov. Thank you for being with me. You're always welcome. I know you're busy.
Let me just
Thank
say
you for
one
making
last
time.
thing, Chris.
Yes, sir.
There was one great politician who said you campaign in poetry and you govern in prose. He was a great governor of New York, Mario Cuomo. And we're not seeing that governance in prose today. We're seeing chaos. Now is the time we got to lift it up. Let's go. This is our time. Let's get America the greatest nation on earth. Let's start acting like it.
Terry McAuliffe, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I'll talk to you again soon.
Chris.
Thank you for being with us at NewsNation.
Thank you, brother.
4 minutes and 35 seconds. Now, I let Terry talk because you're not hearing that from Democrats. You're not. You're not hearing it like that. Why? Because they have confused new with better. And that's why my next guest is not a one-off people saying, oh, he could run for president. You hear it all the time. People ask me about Stephen A. Smith running for president. Why? Because we're so desperate for different. So what does he think about the Democrats? What does he think they're missing? Where is the opportunity between these two parties? Stephen A. Smith, you know what he is at the end of the day? He's a student of the game. Next.
Stephen A. He's a good guy. He's a smart guy. I love watching him. He's got great entertainment skills, which is very important. People watch him. You know, a lot of these Democrats I watch, I say they have no chance. I've been pretty good at picking people and picking candidates, and I will tell you, I'd love to see him run.
Here's the president saying Stephen A. Smith should run for president. You know why Stephen A. is popular? It's because he's not partisan. He's a student of the game. I welcome my friend once again to help me explain the disconnect between what my last guest was arguing Democrats should be about and what we see from their current players. How do you explain it?
It was hard listening to him, to be quite honest with you. I respect the former governor of Virginia, Mr. McCullough. I mean, I know he did, in a lot of people's eyes, he did a great job. And I'm certainly not here to impugn his record, his resume, his reputation in any way. I just felt that what he was articulating was almost as if he was living in a cocoon or something, where you were talking about what you feel and what you would do, but you weren't talking about what the Democratic Party had been doing, and for quite some time, I might add. It wasn't just 2020, it wasn't just 2024 that they were doing some of the things that they were doing, where they were ignoring inflation, they were ignoring the price of goods, they were ignoring the quality of life that a vast majority of American citizens were experiencing in this country. But you're talking about violence in the streets and what have you, and people getting arrested and getting out of jail the same day. You're talking about sanctuary cities and people and homelessness ravaging our nation, and a lot of things that they weren't paying attention to. There were a plethora of things that the Democratic Party was ignoring because they were stuck in their own thing, basically trying to guilt you into supporting them. When I listen to him, I'm listening to a man who said, look at my record, look at what worked for us, look at the quote-unquote Bill Clinton model, although as black Americans, we should always have some issue with Bill Clinton because of the crime bill, you know, and how that led to mass incarceration or assisted in continuing mass incarceration of African-American men in particular, and we understand that, but there were a lot of things that he did good. Obviously, he departed from office with a surplus. He focused on the economy through the help of Newt Gingrich and the right in Congress and what have you. They worked together and they got things done. And they showed us the importance of compromise and going across the aisle and doing what was in the best interest of American citizens by showing there's a willingness to compromise, to work together, and to make sure that you're putting more money in people's pockets and you're assisting in keeping the streets safe. Now, when you're doing those two things, and that's the kind of thing that Governor McCullough was talking about, I get you. I understand that. That's not what we were hearing in 2024. So when I'm abhorring or lamenting the state of affairs within the Democratic Party, I'm basically talking about what they were focusing on. They may be doing things on the state and local level and may deserve an abundance of credit for it, but that's not the message that we were receiving. And you know why we weren't receiving that message? Because they didn't think they could sell it to us. They didn't think that that would be good enough. They wanted to make sure, oh, we're going to point to racism. We're going to guilt you into voting for us. We're not going to talk about the things that we're doing positively. We're going to talk about what the other side is doing negatively to engage in fear-mongering to help you, through fear factor, go our way instead of theirs. And it didn't work this time. And to be quite honest with you, even though I might not like some of the things I'm seeing from the Trump administration thus far, the bottom line is I'm glad it didn't work, because I think for the longest time, black Americans have played the role of suckers to the Democratic Party. They've guilted us into voting for them, making us feel as if we're going to be ostracized, creating division within our own communities or what have you to get our vote, instead of saying to us, hey, this is what we will do for you, and it will work better than what they're offering. That's why it was a bit difficult for me to listen to him, not because he was wrong with what he was saying. I'm talking about Governor McCullough here. I'm talking about what he talked about, and what he alluded to is the kind of message we should be craving in this day and age. But unfortunately, there are not enough folks, particularly on the left, capable of giving it to us straight. They think they have to engage in bullying and fear-mongering in order to get us to see their way of thinking.
You know, it was an interesting moment in the town hall. You were talking to President Trump. He was trying to make the point to you that he got more black votes than Republicans normally get. And he got more than he did the time before. And there was a little bit of confusion. He was talking about like Harlem and riots and stuff like that. That's what people picked up on. But what I wanted to ask you about is he really does seem to believe that there is a moment here for Republicans to grab not just Latinos. People misunderstand Latinos as a demographic. Even more so than they misunderstand the black community, as if every black is the same. But that there's an opportunity that black voters don't have to belong to Democrats. Do you believe that?
I do believe that. It's going to take more convincing, but I believe that he's touching on something that can't be ignored. I heard him loud and clear talking about the blacks and how the blacks love him so much, and historically black colleges and university. I mean, it was, you know, listening to him, it was funny and uncomfortable all rolled up into one. But it doesn't mean that we negate recognizing the validity of his point. Remember when he was campaigning in 2015, 2016, he basically looked at Black America and said, what do you have to lose? He was basically pointing to the Democratic Party and how for so long, so many promises have been made, but ultimately what you're doing is trying to encourage us to lean on a party and lean on government. And oftentimes I use Major League Baseball as an analogy to highlight this, because with baseball, even though they've made inroads and they work diligently to improve the black populace within its sport, one of the things that I've done, Chris, over the years in talking about Major League Baseball is I've said to people, unlike the NBA, where you got 1 year out of high school and you can go pro, unlike college football, where you can play 2 years or so, 3 years, and then you go to play professional football. In Major League Baseball, you can get picked up as a teenager, you can get picked up later. But it's AA, AAA, et cetera, that you got to go through, and then you hope that somebody recognizes your talents and are willing to, materialize that into something beneficial for you. But it involves more trusting of the system. And that's not something Black Americans are inclined to do in any system. We don't like to trust the system because the system has hurt us as a community. I just looked at the stat involving the poverty rate in the United States of America. Do you know that from 1965 to 1973, the poverty rate had gone from about 17.3% to about 11.2%, Chris? But since 1973, it's fluctuated between 11 and 15%. Since 1973. In other words, it hasn't changed. How many times do I tell you, as my brother from another mother, that guess what? When white folks catch a cold, black folks catch pneumonia. It's always worse for us. So Trump comes along and he says, this is what the situation is. No matter what they're telling you, guess what? Your situation doesn't seem to change. The poverty rate doesn't seem to change. Education and its troubles doesn't seem to change, which is why you got the whole charter school things and vouchers and all of that stuff. Crime in the streets doesn't change. Okay, the economy as it pertains to how it affects you, it doesn't change. No matter where you turn, no matter where you look, there's always somebody doing better off than you guys, no matter what they say, no matter how much they ask you to depend on them. And then when we go to the Democrats and we say, look, these are the facts. What do you have to say about that? We know about the New Deal. We know what Lyndon B. Johnson did. We know about Civil Rights, Voting Rights Act, okay? We know about our Fair Housing Act. We know about all of these things. But as you look over the last 30, 40, 50 years, what's your new message? What do you have to say? It never changes. It's them. They don't care about you. They're racist, et cetera, et cetera. Even if it were true, and I'm not here to say it's true in every case because I don't fall for that nonsense, the fact remains, at some point you're going to say, you know what? That's letting you off the hook. And then with this latest stuff, with the whole woke culture, cancel culture, transgender issues, and all of this other stuff, you got to remember, along the way, you forgot about us. And why? Because you know you have our vote. Because that's been the case since the mid-'60s. The GOP knows for the most part they don't. And as a result, Black Americans are the one disenfranchised group in the United States of America. Some black people have risen up and said, enough of this nonsense. We might as well try something new because how is this working for us? That's how we look at it. That's how a lot of us are looking at it. And that's why our eyes are opening. And as somebody who talked to a lot of black athletes, a lot of black folks, before he ever began running for president, I told you that about Trump. He kind of knows this because it's the kind of message he received, which I believe played a role in encouraging him to run back in 2015, 2016.
I see where you're coming at this from. It's a very intelligent perspective. He's certainly manifesting it. And, on the culture wars thing, Dave Chappelle said it very well also. Yeah, he was trying to get himself out of a hole of making jokes that people didn't like. But he said, at the end of the day, maybe I make fun of you because I'm jealous about how much recognition and how much attention the transgender community has gotten, and the blacks are still fighting for that level of recognition and cultural currency. It was an interesting point, and I take yours as well. We are in a period of change. The question is, who will seize the mantle of having the better idea? That's who's going to win, because everybody is anxious for better right now. Stephen A., thank you. I smell what you're cooking, and I appreciate you, Chef.
All right, my man. You take care.
I'll see you again. This is the highlight for us tonight because our Knicks are going to get crushed. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. The Trump administration announced today they're adding a new tool to their deportation arsenal. a free ticket and $1,000 to any illegal migrant that decides to self-deport. Wait a minute. Pay somebody for breaking the law? Is that a good policy? Congresswoman Paulina, it supports this administration. She's going to El Salvador. Why? She's got answers. Next. All right. Trump administration. They've definitely decreased border crossings. They'll give you a number, 95%, but it's down, okay? They've arrested, closing in on 200,000 undocumented migrants, certainly over 100,000. But they have many millions left to go to achieve what the president says he wants to do. Again, I question the value of that policy, but that's his policy. The new tool is self-deportation, okay? You decide to leave, we'll give you $1,000 and we'll cost, we'll plus a flight, okay? DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says this is the best, safest, most cost-effective way to avoid arrest. Now, theoretically, it would cost somewhere around $10 to $20 billion if everybody wanted to do this. If you use the number of 10 million people, $1,000 plus all the airfare. Here's how the leading Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee, Jamie Raskin, responded. That's apples and oranges. People who want to pay all that money to get in here, they have to be vetted. It's not just you pay and you come. I want to bring in a member of Congress who has been a champion of Trump's deportation efforts, and she's actually going to El Salvador, which is surprising to me. Republican Representative Paulina Luna, Florida. Good to see you, Luna.
Hey, Chris, what's going on?
It sounds a little Democratish. We will pay you to self-deport. Are you concerned that this could go wrong, or do you think that this is a good tool in the box?
Look, I don't necessarily know that people that are here illegally are going to take Kristi Noem up on that, or the president. Frankly, I hope that they would leave on their own accord and not have to be paid on the way out. But I think long term, what they're thinking and calculating numbers is that it's likely cheaper than having to house them, put them in beds, then pay for flights and deport that way. And so hoping that people will do the right thing. But again, this kind of ties into why I'm going to South America, going to El Salvador. As you know, Chris, I am the chairwoman of the El Salvador caucus. Actually, that was one of Representative Gates' last things that he did in Congress, was to name me chairwoman. And frankly, El Salvador has been leading South America in regards to its anti-crime stability efforts. And as you know, many people that come here illegally are coming from South America. So if we are going to actually go to the root of the issue, I think that we need to start talks in helping South American countries stabilize their economies, and that is tied to crime. And so if we can really replicate what Bukele has done in El Salvador and help foster that relationship, I think in the long run, it'll do wonders for this country and for, frankly, South America.
All right, so two separate issues to speak to. One is, how does that jive with America First, giving money to El Salvador or any of these other broken down places? I thought that MAGA was about keeping money here, not giving it to folks who can't get it together themselves.
Well, Bukele's gotten it together, and he frankly went from being one of the most dangerous countries in the world to now one of the safest. And I would actually argue, Chris, to that point, in that we are simply assisting in their efforts to take back their own people, and then also working to help stabilize. Not to mention the White House is actively engaged in negotiating tariffs with El Salvador. And I will also have you note, because you did address it on a previous section, I actually just got back from meeting with members of the European Union, Romania, Moldova, and frankly, those tariff negotiations and talks are in works, and there's over 50 countries, I think upwards now of 100, that are actually in talks with our White House in an effort to have an open, healthy trade with the U.S.
Yeah, I think they would have done it if you just picked up the phone. I think that the president did it in reverse order, but it doesn't matter. We'll see what deals he gets, and then the criticism goes away, and he'll live or die on the strength of the deals, and that's fine. In terms of replicating, you said we want to replicate what they're doing in El Salvador. You'd have a hard time passing our constitutional standards, given what Bukele has done down there. Just a cursory review. He rounded up almost 100,000 people with almost no due process. El Salvador is not America.
Wow.
Fair point?
Well, I will say that what Bukele was facing was a country that was overtaken and run by dangerous cartels. We're not just talking about the cartels here in the United States that I would argue are evil, yes, but down there, the level and magnitude of which they went through in some of these gang initiations. I was actually just talking to some people now that are going on the delegation with us. I'm talking about, you know, having to kill your own children, your wife, your family members, and then 60 plus people to be initiated into these violent cartels. Their only way for him to actually bring peace to that nation and make it become prosperous again was to do what he did. And frankly, the people that they did put in prison, I don't know if you know this story, which I'm sure you do, Chris, but for viewers who might not, what they did is they actually had people that would hang out in the tattoo parlors. And when the gang members would actually come in to get their tattoos covered up to make it look like they were no longer part of those gangs because they heard about the arrests that were coming, they actually would send them immediately to prison. Now, they have work camps. They are releasing some people, but for those very violent offenders that were murderers and in some cases actually creating and committing human sacrifice, which is just a wild concept and completely not fathomable, those people, I would argue, deserve the death penalty. But my stance and President Bukele's stance on that are separate. He believes that jail and life in prison is a lot harsher than death, and I would argue the opposite. But that's neither here nor there. I think fostering our relationship with South America and then also letting other countries know as well that what they did would be the way towards a free South America. I do believe that, and so that's why we're going down there. And mind you, this is not just a Republican trip. We're actually going with the co-chair, who's a Democrat, and frankly, it's going to be obviously something that Democrats will have to explain because they said that this has been partisan politics, and it hasn't, at least not from our perspective.
What's the chance you come back with Garcia?
We're not coming back with Garcia. We're not meeting with Garcia.
0% chance? 0%.
There is a 100% 0% chance we're not seeing him.
All right. Well, listen, I hope you're safe. I hope you're effective, and I look forward to talking to you when you come back. Congresswoman Paulina Luna,
Chris.
good luck doing the work of the American people. All right. The task of selecting 12 impartial jurors is always a challenge, okay? When you have a big famous person, Sean Diddy Combs, the chance that you're going to get people who say, oh, I don't know anything about it, I'm totally open on it, is almost nil. So how do you finesse this to create a fair trial, okay? What were people asked as potential jurors? Why did their opinions on other people's sex lives come into play? Day one of the Diddy trial, inside, next. Do you have beliefs or concerns about hiring sex workers? Do you have beliefs or views that would not allow you to be impartial about hip-hop artists, sexual assault, or sex trafficking? I don't know what your answers are, but you'd have to figure it out if you want to be a juror in the Diddy case. Both sides were looking to find 12 impartial jurors. I don't know how they're going to do that. They got to find people who are willing to be fair. Do those questions make sense? And really, what does the calculation come down to for both sides? Attorney Misty Maris joins me with the context. Thank you for my friend. Educate us. What are they trying to do, and what's the best case scenario?
All right. So today, 32 prospective jurors were questioned. 19 were deemed qualified. Chris, qualified means that these individuals, they probably know about the case. They've read something about the case, but they can put aside any preconceived notions and be unbiased when they get into that courtroom. So let's go through some of the questions. I mean, this was a deep dive. The judge at the beginning of the day saying this jury questionnaire is like reading the trilogy of Lord of the Rings. There are so many questions, but it's getting into these intimate issues, and we know why. We know that video of Cassie Ventura, that terrible video, that's going to be seen. We know that the defense is going to be all about consent, that there's a swinger lifestyle. So all of these questions go into those intimate areas, and this is what the jurors were questioned on. Some of the folks who were dismissed: a woman who watched the ID documentary, The Fall of Diddy, a woman who is the CMO at Simon & Schuster, chief marketing officer, who had exposure to a book by another hip-hop artist who appeared in one of those documentaries, and someone who called the assault on Ventura damning on the jury questionnaire. Some individuals who are staying, 3 women who said they'd been victims of sexual abuse, but could put their proclivities aside and go into that courtroom unbiased. a woman who lives in the Bronx and loves hip hop, and a 30-year-old preschool teacher who liked to comment from a comedian about baby oil, that baby oil headline. They remain. But we got 19 qualified, Chris, and here's what happens next. 45 qualified jurors will be in that room. And then the real gamesmanship begins. That's when the defense can use their preemptory challenges to eliminate jurors without saying why. They have 10. Prosecutors have 6. That's when you're going to see that those 45 people, which are qualified, being narrowed down to who you think is going to be more sympathetic to your case and lean your way. Chris, we're looking for leaders and followers.
Misty Maris, appreciate it. Well done and concise. Thank you.